This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jamie Moore over Zoom. Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm all right, Andy. How are you, pal?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm looking forward to the game tonight as well as the boxing. Obviously, you being a Man U fan, I'm a West Bromwich Albion fan. So hopefully, I don't know whether this goes out tonight or it goes out tomorrow, but hopefully, I'll be the one celebrating by the time we next speak.
Well, sorry about that, mate. It's not going to happen, but you know, you can only hope.
Mate, we can only hope, but you never know. You never know. Yeah, let's obviously get into some boxing talk. A few different places. We can start with yourself, Jamie. Uh, probably the most recent news, which we haven't had a chance to speak on, is Dave Allen's retirement.
Yeah.
Jamie, just kind of from your point of view, what was your thoughts on it? How did the conversation go with Dave when he came to you?
Yeah, I mean, I said to him, my reaction to it was, listen, if you're coming out and saying this stuff, then you're probably 6 months ago you was thinking about retiring. I knew he'd toyed with the idea after David Price said that. I was part of the conversation when he first rang me up. But it's the right decision if that's how he's feeling. A boxing ring is the worst place you can be if you don't actually want to be in there. I did it in my last fight. It was the only fight in my whole career where I was in the ring thinking, what am I doing here? And it's a lonely place to be when them thoughts are in your head. So and especially when they're sort of the polar opposite to what usually the feelings would be. You sort of be thriving off the occasion. You really want to be there and be involved in a fight. So he's made the right decision. He's had he's probably overachieved what he ever anticipated he would do as a fighter. He's become a massively popular figure on the British boxing scene. So he can be proud of himself, and I think he'll stay involved as a character. I don't think he should sort of totally walk away. I'd love him to be involved in some form around the game because he's a good asset to have, and he's a character. He sells himself well on social media, and I think that it'd be a shame if he sort of walked away and wasn't involved in the future.
Jamie, let's say if maybe in 6 to 12 months' time, Dave was to turn around and he changed his mind. He wanted to kind of get back in the gym. He wanted to see what was what. Would you be willing to take him back on, or would you say no? Listen, you've said what you've said, and you wouldn't want to be involved?
Well, that's a difficult question because people change their mind and everyone's circumstances are different. So a decision what I would make today isn't necessarily one what I'd make in 6 or 12 months time, the same as Dave Allen. So I can't answer the question what would I turn around to him and say in 12 months time if he turned around and come back. But the way I feel at the moment is that he's made the right decision. And again, talking about experience, I toyed with the idea of coming back sort of 12, 18 months after I retired, sparred a few times and realised the reason why I retired 18 months before. So I feel like I would be in a good position to give him advice and say, Dave, listen, I've been here. I know what it's like. I wouldn't advise you to do it. And then obviously, depending on my situation, then, in terms of how many fighters I've got, who I'm involved with, the time frame, it all depends on them. But I honestly don't think that's going to happen. I think, I spoke to Nige about it and explained to him what had happened. And Nige's words were, you know what, I hope he finds peace. I hope he can just be happy. And that's all we can ever ask for anyone. And Dave he loves boxing and he's loved entertaining people. I just hope he can find that peace on the other side of the ropes, stay involved. I know he loves helping the kids who's been, especially Danny and the other lads. And I'm just hoping that can sort of quench his thirst for it and keep him involved. Because someone with them sort of traits where you want to go out and help people, they're worth the weight in gold. You know what I mean? Especially two people who need that help. So if he's willing to sort of offer his help to people and stay involved in that way and develop people and give something back, then I think that's the best way forward for him.
Jamie, we've obviously seen the sparring footage of him and Alexander Usyk. Dave pointing out the moment when he thought he'd been knocked out. Obviously he wasn't, but he said that he felt he'd been knocked out. Had you seen that footage prior to Dave releasing it, or had you spoken to Dave about it before he made it public knowledge?
Yeah, he sent it me straight away, so I seen it straight away, and he was sort of laughing about it, saying, you know, can't believe this has happened. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing walking towards Usyk with your hands around your waist? And he said, oh, I sparred really well. And I probably just got a bit, he was right in towards the end of the last round. And I probably just got a bit overconfident. But it wasn't a concern or a worry because it was blatantly obvious he'd walked straight in with his hands down. He was in with Usyk. So he that could have happened in a normal situation where his hands were up. You know, it's not. It wasn't a massively strange scenario, but nobody knows what's going on in a fighter's head, and there was obviously more going on in Dave's head than was sort of on the surface. Because, like I say, on the surface of it, a fighter can get wobbled in sparring at any point in his career and it not be an issue. Whereas to Dave, it obviously meant more to him and felt more to him inside than it did to everybody else. So yeah, it was. I was surprised he put it out there, to be honest. But you know, looking at it from a psychological point of view, I feel like he's bared his soul to everyone and been brutally honest to make himself go, there we go, I can't come back now. You know, these I've told everyone the reasons, and I've not held back. So in 12 months' time, if I do turn around and say I'm going to fight again, people have got the ammunition to turn around to me and go, yeah, but you retired for this reason, so that's why you shouldn't be fighting. So yeah, time will tell, won't it? But I've got a feeling he's made the right decision and he's going to go on, and I think he'll be successful when he puts his mind to something. Dave, he's really he really puts his mind to it, but it's got to be something what he enjoys doing, because I feel like he's probably one of them people who gets bored easily. So so if he's involved in helping people, which is obviously a passion of his, then I think he'll be successful.
We know it's been a frustrating period for Dave with regards to fights. He was meant to fight against Christopher Lovejoy, that falling through for circumstances I can't really sum up. And then he was due to fight on this card this week, but didn't have an opponent announced. Obviously announced his retirement. Do you feel that kind of these past couple of weeks, going back to the Lovejoy thing, was a significant factor in Dave's decision in the end? The fact that he'd been frustrated, never had the opportunity to get back out, or was that just kind of a small added?
It was probably the straw what broke the camel's back, that sort of scenario. I think if the Lovejoy fight had have happened, it was when you talk about risk reward, it wasn't that risky. I didn't feel when you know compared to his record, and he was getting well paid for it, and then he'd have probably got a bigger fight afterwards. But I wasn't really totally aware of his mindset. You know, now he's been totally honest afterwards. You know, I wasn't aware of that, and so I'm glad in a way that the fights have fell through, because, like I say, it's the worst place to be in a ring when you're having those type of thoughts. But so just like, I'm being deadly honest though. Talent wise, he's not sort of over the hill or past it. You know, he's probably got a few miles on the clock what he could have done without, but he was performing really well, and he got himself in great shape. So, but then maybe that was because he realised that the miles were adding up on the clock, so he had to make sure he was in better shape to make sure he could better prepare himself to look after himself. So yeah, long and short of it is he's made the right decision, and could he still go on for another couple of years? Yeah, but that could be detrimental to his health in the long run, which that no one ever wants to see that. You know what I mean?
Final thing on it all, Jamie. The pair of you never had the chance to share the ring as a corner, as his trainer in the corner, and obviously as a fighter. Any regrets at all over that, not being able to kind of see what could have happened between the pair of you?
Not really. I mean, it, it a couple of years before he came to me, people was talking about it, saying you should go with Jamie. I think you're a good suit. So I never have any regrets, Andy. I always think that everything happens at the exact perfect time for the exact reason that it happens. So Dave came to me, and I feel like the small time we had together, there was a bit of an impact on his mentality and the way he thinks about things. So in a positive way, I mean, so I feel like it was beneficial for us both, because I always think like I learn things off people like Dave, you know, different types of characters and people with different mentalities. You learn stuff all the time, and so I feel like it was pretty educational for us both. And he said some nice things about me, which I was really grateful of, because of the small amount of time that we've spent together, really, in comparison to everybody else. He obviously feels like he's had an impact on his life. So in that sense, even though we didn't have a fight, doesn't mean that it was wasted time. You know, it was time well spent, obviously.
Moving forward, Jamie, on to Jack Catterall. Obviously, he fights next weekend. I will attempt to pronounce his opponent's name, Abdurazak Hoya. Don't know if that's right or wrong, so apologies if it isn't correct. But Jamie, just talk to me about what you're expecting to see from Jack next weekend.
Jack Catterall is the most patient man I've ever come across in my life. I promise you, he is. He's been so patient. He deserves this fight, even though it's not the fight what he wants, because you know he's been sat around. He's been in the gym up constantly all the way through lockdown. As soon as we was allowed back in the gym, even before that, he's never stopped keeping the tools sharp and keeping himself ready, just in case the phone went and they said, right, you've got 4 weeks or whatever. So for a fighter at the level he's at, to apply himself the way he's done and just constantly be in the gym, even though he knows that there's 99% there's not going to be a fight around the corner, testament to his character. This fight is what it is. He's agreed to step aside to let Ramirez fight Taylor. So he just needs to stay busy. So it's not the most dangerous fight in the world, but by the same rule, we couldn't just get someone who was going to blow away, because that's not good for Jack Catterall. He needs to be kept on his toes. So it needs to get the right balance of opponent where it's not too dangerous to risk the fight in front, but he gets enough out of it to keep his tools sharp and get a few rounds under his belt. But the form he's in at the minute, I feel like, any 10-stone fighter in the world he's capable of beating, without a doubt. And we know how good Taylor and Ramirez are. I don't think we know yet how good Jack Catterall is, and I think the better opposition, the better we'll see him perform. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited for Jack because he just wants to fight, and I'm hoping that Taylor wins from a British point of view, because you're looking at probably an homecoming to Edinburgh Castle when the crowds are allowed back in, and in probably May time next year. It'll be Jack Catterall versus Taylor, which will be a massive fight for Britain.
What do you know about Jack's opponent next weekend, Jamie?
Only what I've seen on the videos from YouTube from when the opponent got agreed and sent through. So he's basically quite a tall upright, not a bad jab. But for someone as tall and rangy as he is, he gets caught quite a bit on the second phase out of his feet. So defensively, he's not that great, and that can only present problems for him in terms of when he's fighting Jack Catterall, because, like I say, he's in the form of his career. He's 27 now. He's coming right into his peak. So next year, when he gets these big fights, it'll come at the perfect time for him. I've been saying to him all this time when he's been, frustrated about not getting these opportunities. Eventually, when you do, it'll make it all that sweeter when it does happen. And, again, everything happens for a reason. He's probably better now than he was 12 months ago, even though he's not been that active. His last performance for me was one of his best. The kid who we thought was a real tough guy. Jack broke 3 of his ribs in, I think it was the 3rd round, and he got through the fight to the end. But so I think the rounds did him good, but I think from a performance point of view, Jack's always in the past. He's always like gears. He's probably been a little one-paced. He's defensively so adept at controlling the tempo and pace with his feet, but he probably needed more offense and needed the gears to go through. And we've added that to him now, and he's flying at the minute. So I'm looking forward to his performance.
I was going to say, is it important that Jack makes a statement next weekend because of the fact he knows that he's only a fight away from facing the winner of Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez fight?
I think that's probably it'll be more beneficial to Jack. I don't think he has to look good to sort of make his statement to think, because the fight's going to happen anyway. But I think Jack Catterall going into a fight with Taylor or Ramirez, whoever wins, off on the back of a bad performance, it probably wouldn't be good psychologically. Whereas putting a good shift in, getting a good performance in, hopefully a nice stoppage, but not too early, so he gets a few rounds under his belt, and then building a bit of momentum off it. So I don't think it'll affect the outcome of when he fights for the world title at all. It'd probably just help him a little bit psychologically, that's all.
Now that is on the undercard of a highly anticipated and a long-awaited fight between Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, Jamie. Just give me a breakdown of that fight. What are you expecting in that headline bout?
It's a great fight, isn't it, for the start? And I'm probably the same opinion as a lot of people, where I think Dubois could get him out early because Joyce isn't hard to find, but we know Joyce has got a good chin. So I just feel if Joyce gets through the first 4 rounds, then it's going to be interesting because I think Dubois can box a bit more than people are giving him credit for. He's got a real good jab, but can he stay at a tempo what Joyce is going to set? And if Dubois has been landing cleanly and trying to blast him out and he's not going anywhere, that's going to play on his mind. It's also going to take gas out of his tank, and we know Joyce has got a real good engine. So I think it's sort of Dubois early, or if he's not got him out there in 4 rounds, I think Joyce is going to outwork him. It's a great fight.
Moving forward, once again, Jamie, we know Martin Murray's in camp getting ready for that fight with Billy Joe Saunders. He said to me off camera, this is probably the most focused you've seen him in a long time. What should we expect to see from Martin come that bout with Billy Joe? Because it still seems to be a lot of people are favouring Billy Joe Saunders quite considerably at this moment in time.
Of course, and rightly so, really. When you look at the stage of Martin's at in his career and look at Billy Joe, what does it present to you? It tells you that Billy Joe's probably going to win on points. So he's going to be a massive favourite. Doesn't matter to us. He's always been a big underdog in all the fights he's gone into, Martin, but he's always surprised people. And this being at super middleweight is probably suiting Martin at this point in his career, because for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, he's always struggled to make middleweight. He had a period of time where he went up to super middleweight and then come back down. So the ideal scenario for me going into this fight, I said to Martin, was I want you to train and diet like you're making middleweight, so you've got that extra bit of speed, because he's going to need to, he's going to need that little bit of time and speed to even compete with Billy Joe. But you don't have to struggle to get down to the weight. So do the weight like you're making middleweight, so you still got the timing and speed, but you don't have to drag that extra 8 pounds off. And that's exactly what he's done. He's in the exact place where I wanted him to be. And like I say, focus-wise, he knows this is his last opportunity. And the old saying, a desperate man's a dangerous man, is, Billy Joe, phenomenal fighter. I've got a lot of respect for him. And we know how difficult this is going to be. But he's put himself in the perfect position to do what I know he can do. When you look at Martin's performance against Sergio Martinez, I think he was rated number 2 pound for pound fighter in the world at the time. Similar type of fighter to Billy Joe, tricky southpaw, could hit a little bit. So it's a similar fight to that, except it's 5 years down the line for Martin. So Martin's 5 years older, but he's also 5 years more experienced. And when you look at what's happened over those last 5 years, he's been more active than Billy Joe. You know, even though he's the older fighter, I think Martin's had 9 fights or 10 fights in that period of time, and Billy Joe's only had 6. So, which surprised me when I saw it, because, you know, even though I know Billy Joe's not been that active, and sometimes he's been hanging around waiting for the Canelo fight and stuff, I thought he'd been more active than that. So they're only small little factors, but lots of small little factors all add up. And like I say, we know it's a tough fight, but there's those little things come into play, and then Martin being on the top of his game on the night, you know, it could be a big upset.
Sticking with that division, Jamie, we did have a big fight announced earlier this week between Canelo and Callum-Smith. Just your thoughts on it, Jamie?
It's a great fight, isn't it? It's the two best fighters at super middleweight going against each other to decide who's the best, which is all you can ever ask for in a division. I'm glad Callum-Smith has got the fight for himself. You know, he's been wanting it for a long time. He's so big for super middleweight. How he makes that weight and stays strong, I don't know. And you know, on the surface of it, you think great fight. But I seen somebody, Emery on Twitter, sort of made a good point. He said, I'd like to see if there's a rehydration clause, because I think the fight is competitive or not, depending on whether Canelo's put a rehydration clause in. Never even sort of thought about that scenario. And then it's a great point, because for me, Callum-Smith has got to be using that size advantage to his advantage. And if he's limited to the amount of weight he can put back on after the weighing up to a certain point, then that's going to affect his performance. But, you know, taking that out of the equation, if there isn't one, which you'd like to think that there isn't, because why should Canelo try and put things into place so he's got a bit of an advantage? If there isn't one, then it's such a great fight. You know, Callum-Smith probably bigger in structure than Kovalev. And Kovalev was older. So we know the job what Canelo did on Kovalev, but Callum-Smith's such a good body puncher, as is Canelo. I can't see it being anything other than a great fight to watch. You know, one side of me starts to think that by around about 7 or 8 rounds, Canelo will start getting to Callum. But he's never been in there with a fighter as big as Callum and who hits as hard as Callum, who's been, you know, he's had to absorb that sort of punishment and then get to them middle rounds and come through it. He's always been sort of in control by that point. So there's loads of question marks what Canelo's got to answer as well. Fantastic fight.
Final thing before I let you shoot off, Jamie, Akib Fiaz, Chantelle Cameron, how are the pair of them looking after obviously their wins about a month ago now?
Yeah. Well, Chantelle's been busy celebrating, but she's back in training. She's with Molly McCann, training with doing some UFC training just to keep her ticking over. Akib was in the gym the week after the fight. He's an absolute sponge. He just loves learning, and he actually finished off Jack Cartwright's last spar for us. So yeah, he's been back in the gym learning, and you know what, they're both in great form. I think they'll both be out in January. Eddie's looking to do a unification fight with for Chantelle. I think the plan is to try and get all the belts at 10 stone for Chantelle, and then fingers crossed if Katie Taylor's around, then we can have a big massive fight for Britain and Ireland involving 2 undisputed champions from 2 different weight divisions, which obviously will have never happened before for women's boxing. So that's the plan anyway.
Right, Jamie, we will leave that there, and I'll leave you now to enjoy the rest of your evening and to watch West Bromwich Albion overcome Manchester United at Old Trafford. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you, mate. Enjoy your evening, like I say, and thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
Top man, no worries, Andi.